again. We do apologize for the technical difficulties. We've had a little bit of a hiccup on the technical side, but it seems like everything is figured out. So if you, AppWorks and myself, we are hosting a very special guest tonight. His name is Mik Naayem. He is the Chief Business Officer and co-founder of a company called Dapper Labs. This is the very same team behind NBA Top Shot, as well as entertainment-focused protocol blockchain called Flow. This is also the very same team that created a platform called CryptoKitties, essentially a platform to buy and sell virtual kittens. But no worries if you heard of none of those things. We're gonna do a deep dive on all of those topics, as well as getting into everything all about NFTs. For those of you that do have questions throughout the chat, feel free to leave them in the comment section. We will be leaving some time towards the end of our chat to address any and every inquiry that you might have. But first, Mik, thank you for joining us tonight. Welcome to the show.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
And we do apologize for all these false starts, but very, very excited to really have a chat with you tonight. I did a lot of preparation for our conversation tonight, and I think where I want to start is actually with the background, the virtual background that you have on. It seems to be commonplace for many people in the NFT space to sort of show off all these NFT arts that they've purchased. And I've noticed that you've selected 5. Any particular reason why you chose these 5?
Yeah, they all have a kind of special place in my heart. So I guess the first one to, I guess my right, so your left, the CryptoKitty. And so as kind of one of the creators of CryptoKitties, I needed to have that up there. This one is to me mainly because it's presented collab that we did with Muse. So and it was our first collab with a musician, and kind of running our IP team. I know how much my team worked really hard to bring this to life, and so it's very near and dear to my heart. The next one is my first race card that I acquired for F1 Delta Time, and I really liked what Animoca and F1 Delta Time did with NFTs, because essentially they took kind of our concept, which was just purely collectibles, and added a lot of functionality. And I thought it was really interesting how they mixed NFTs with kind of the idea of staking and earning rev tokens, et cetera. And so, and actual race functionality. So I like that. I've made it. I've lost a bunch of races with it, but I still love it. The next two are from my actual kind of favorite crypto project, Don't Buy Meme. And really what I loved about them is that they went all in kind of combining the idea of DeFi primitives and NFT. And what I like about it is in order to be able to acquire the art, you need to stake and be patient and essentially show that you care. So it's not just about, oh, I have money and therefore I can buy these pieces. And so those two I love a lot. And then the last one, honestly, I chose this one because I know nothing about it other than it was pretty and spoke to me. And I think that's the beauty of art in general and digital art, is that I can find something that is beautiful, buy it immediately, own it, the artist gets some money. And I think that's kind of the beauty of NFT and digital art, is that now you don't have to be in a gallery to kind of be seen. Anything that speaks to anybody now is able to get acquired quickly. And I think that's, at the end of the day, for kind of the digital art use case, that's what NFT has done, is made it possible for any digital artist to showcase their work and any fan to kind of discover this art rather than kind of having to go through the medium of like galleries, which all over the world showed pretty much the same 15 artists over and over again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So for those that are uninitiated, your background could very well be just a collection of quote unquote JPEG. So perhaps in layman's term, can you define what exactly is a non-fungible token, or NFT slash NFT for short? And why should anyone care what an NFT is?
Really, really good questions. So where to start? Well, I think I'll give you a bit of background of Dapper Labs, and I think it dovetails well into this. So we created CryptoKitties, and CryptoKitties were the first non-fungible token. And so we created, in creating CryptoKitties, what we wanted to do is create an NFT. And when we were looking at the space back in 2017, what we saw was we believed in a future of decentralized apps, but what we saw was at the time in blockchain, all we saw was money. You had these fungible tokens, was it Bitcoin or Ethereum, but it was all money. And when we looked at kind of like, well, if there's going to be a future that is decentralized, there can't just be money. Like money for the sake of money is useless, right? Money exists only as a way for us to acquire the things that we love, and so for us, when we looked at the blockchain, it was this kind of cold, heartless place, and so we needed a way to represent things. And so NFT is exactly that. It's a way to represent things on the blockchain, and so kind of when you think about it, a fungible thing is like a Bitcoin. It's like a dollar. It doesn't matter which one you have. A non-fungible thing is something that is rare, scarce, and unique. So in the case of a CryptoKitty, that's important because if my CryptoKitty has purple dots and your CryptoKitty has pink stripes, they're not the same to us.
Did you drop one of your AirPods? Just give us a second, folks. I think Mik's got to reconnect to his AirPods. I think you're back.
I'm back. Sorry, now I'm the one with technical difficulties here.
It happens.
Lost my train of thought. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So my cat was purple dots. I may think that it's worth more than yours was pink stripes, and so you need to be able to have those differences. And so really, when we're talking about non-fungible tokens, what we're really talking about at its most fundamental level is a way for the blockchain to kind of identify unique things. And so then the applications can be huge. It can be art, but it can also be real estate. It could be music files. It could be anything that you'd want to represent as a unique thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, the interesting thing is this idea of fungibility and non-fungibility that has already actually existed in the offline world since probably the beginning of time. How come we're only hearing the use of these terms now with the rise of blockchain and cryptocurrencies?
That's a good question. I mean, I guess because it's kind of like what happened is that it was the opposite way around. So if you like in the real world, what happened is we had things first, right? And then we were like, well, we need to be able to do commerce. And so we need to create something fungible so that we can be able to do commerce. And so we always really thought about things first, and there was no reason to define non-fungible things because everything was non-fungible. And then we created the fungible thing. With blockchain, it was the opposite way around because the way the whole architecture of blockchain is really around computers coordinating themselves and talking to each other through money. And that's kind of the major difference between kind of blockchain and kind of well, there's a bunch of differences, but one of the big differences between blockchain and the traditional internet is that rather it be like the kind of the groundwork of it being data, in this case, it's money transferring from one place to another. And so essentially, I would say the reason why NFTs we're hearing now of NFTs is because NFTs is really just saying it's not money. It's not the fungible thing. And that's kind of the name of it, right? Non-fungible. It's the anti money thing. And so it's just I think it just comes from just the order of how things happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the fascinating thing is that, yes, we probably started off wanting non-fungible things. So we created fungible forms of currency to really purchase those non-fungible items. And that became the status quo. And I think now that trend is now being replicated into the digital world. We're using fungible things like tokens and money to be able to buy digital non-fungible things now, right?
Exactly.
So actually, before we go too deep down this rabbit hole, I think you actually had another life before jumping into this world of blockchain and NFTs. As a founder of a startup focusing on the mobile game industry, can you share a little bit of color on this past life of yours?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So in 2011, I created a company called Fuel Powered. Well, its original name was Grant 2. And then we pivoted and changed it to Fuel Powered. Initially, Grant 2, we were trying to create a way for students to compete in games and win scholarship grants. So we like this idea of being for good. We found out that was not a really great business model, and so we pivoted our way into what Fuel Powered ended up doing, which was a live ops platform for mobile games. So kind of one of the issues that we were seeing that one of the biggest benefits of mobile is that when you kind of create a game, you're receiving a lot of data, and so and you're receiving that data in real time. And so we felt that with all that data, you could modify the game based on kind of what you're seeing without having to patch long updates. You should be able to do that in real time. So essentially we created a platform that allowed gamers to kind of interact with each other, so play against each other, but more importantly, the ability for developers to adapt their games through A/B testing to kind of modulate them based on human behavior. And so we grew that to about 200 million people. Our clients tended to be large companies like Bandai Namco, Sega, Animoca, which Animoca ended up acquiring the company. They were our biggest client back in 2016.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And at what point did that start intersecting with the blockchain and crypto world?
It didn't really intersect in as much as that they were kind of two separate things, but they did intersect in the sense that because of my relationship with Animoca ended up being our first partner to help us grow CryptoKitties in China, and kind of brought both our trajectories to be kind of large players in the blockchain space. It was when I joined our parent company, Axiom Zen. In fact, I was hoping not to, I saw the benefits of blockchain, but I was actually hoping that we wouldn't end up being in game. But it became evident to us with the CryptoKitties experiment that games and entertainment tend to lead the way for adoption. And in this case, there was like such a clear use case for users, essentially, that every kind of interaction you've had in the past in a game, everything that you've acquired, you never got into truly own. You're essentially renting it. And so being able to kind of give true ownership to people of the things that they're spending money on and spending time in made a lot of sense, and we believed was net better than kind of centralized gaming.
So can you first share with our viewers what exactly is Axiom Zen? Because I know you are actually serving on the board, if I'm not mistaken, since 2012, which is around the same time that you started your previous company, Fuel Powered, right?
Yes. So Axiom Zen was created by both the CEO of, the now CEO of Dapper Labs and my close friend, Roham. And he started his career in venture capital. And what he kept seeing was a lot of great teams being formed, going after an idea, that idea not working out for one reason or another, and those great teams going their separate ways when it didn't work out. And he became convinced of two things. The first one was that, he saw that as a huge inefficiency, and he became convinced of two things. The first one was that he was convinced that over time, teams can get better at creating startups. They can learn faster, they can learn how to work better together, they can find better processes to find product market fit efficiently and then grow from there. The other thing he saw was that when you raise capital quite early, what you end up doing is having investors who are bought into a vision, and that vision may not be right. And so for an entrepreneur, the best thing to do is to iterate as quickly as possible on what their vision is, what their product is, and test their assumptions and and kind of be proven wrong as quickly as possible. And that kind of conflicts with the investors who are bought into a specific vision. And so with Axiom Zen, it was kind of an attempt to solve that problem, to create essentially a venture studio, a place where we could build startups more quickly on emerging technology. And so the idea was, we won't raise capital initially. We will incubate ideas and try to create as many of them in parallel as possible, and try to fail as quickly as possible. And so with kind of every product that we created, we'd have a thesis, and we try to kind of prove that thesis wrong as quickly as humanly possible. And if we were seeing that we couldn't be proven wrong, then we would double down until it turned into a company. And once it had some sort of level of product market fit, then we would take outside capital, either kind of keep it in-house or spin it out. And really that's what happened with CryptoKitties. In 2017, we had a couple, like the main thesis for us was that we believe that blockchain is the future of the internet. And then we looked at, well, if we believe in that, what bridges need to be built to get us there? And so we ran 3 different experiments. One was around stablecoins, and so at the time only we thought it would sketchy, and we also felt that there could be opportunities there, and so we sent a team after that. Another one was around AI and privacy preserving blockchain. So this idea that you should own your data, but other companies should be able to mine it without knowing that it's yours, so that they can serve you with the right products. And then the third one was CryptoKitties, and CryptoKitties was really based on this idea, this premise that we felt that if you couldn't tell people why blockchain is important, you had to show them, and that you needed something that was easy to approach to get regular people to onboard that technology. But if you're able to do that, then they would understand that this is valuable, and more valuable than what they have in the centralized world. And so that was the thesis for us. And so with CryptoKitties, like beyond kind of like the high revenue numbers that we had and like all the like PR attention, et cetera, what was most important to us was that a third of our audience had never owned a cryptocurrency before. And of that third of that audience, they were spending about 15 times more than they usually spend in games. And so that pointed to us that we were right. And we were talking to them, we asked them, like, why are you spending more? And what they were saying is that in their mind, they weren't spending money, they were just transferring value, in the sense that like they understood that this thing is scarce. I can sell it later, and therefore I'm willing to spend more because it's not just kind of being burnt. I can get rid of it when I'm done and get my money back to a certain extent. Mm-hmm. And so that's what gave us the conviction to create Dapper Labs, which is essentially a consumer blockchain company.
So let me just backtrack a little bit. So Roham, he is his current CEO and co-founder of Dapper Labs, right?
Correct.
And how did you meet Roham?
We went to high school together.
Wow, you guys went to high school together. And so tell me, at that time, was he also dreaming of owning virtual cats, spewing on about the power of decentralization and owning digital assets?
No, not when we were 15. But he was already building websites, and he was starting small businesses, mainly on referral stuff while we were in high school. He also, funnily enough, bought bought all our names as URLs. So he's squatting on all our high school friends' names as URLs. But no, it was very clear that Roham was going to be building technology companies because he was already building small businesses at the time that we were in high school.
Have you been able to reclaim your domain name yet?
I have not, but my friend Noor, who now has a fashion company under her name, has been able to reclaim her name.
So it sounds like I also need to give Roham an interview. Fascinating move there. But you mentioned something earlier that you guys believe that blockchain, more specifically decentralization, was the power of the internet. Can you just share a little bit about why you guys had that thought around 2017? Because prior to 2017, you guys had not been focused on the space at all, right?
So we had been playing around since 2014. And in fact, one of our teams won a hackathon building Bitcoin apps back then. The technology though was like Bitcoin technology, it was impossible to build apps on top and like consumer apps. So at that time, we didn't feel things were, the industry was ready. In 2017, with Ethereum kind of like starting to grow and the growth of ICOs, et cetera, we felt that at that point there was starting to be enough building blocks there to be able to build decentralized apps, and so that's why we started to double down on that. But in general, when we kind of why we believe the future of the internet is decentralized is because it's better both for, it's essentially better for consumers. It's better for most app developers. It's going to be better for most companies. It's definitely better for creators, and it is because at the end of the day, what it does is it frees up the internet from a lot of its monopolies, and it gives for the first time real ownership and should be able to give for the first time also a democratic voice to consumers. And so we have a tendency that well, at least we believe that the tendency kind of progress is towards more autonomy, more freedom, and higher levels of ownership. And so to us, it just makes sense that this is kind of the future. And we think it's a good future because, for example, when it comes to breaking down monopolies, what blockchain does is it allows for app developers to permissionlessly build on top of each other and tap into the same user base and data. And so we think that that's going to dramatically increase the speed of technological progress. I can give you an example, which makes it more clear. So with CryptoKitties, within 2 months of having created CryptoKitties, there's about, I think it was close to 100 apps that were built for CryptoKitties. And these were app developers that never got in touch with our company, that never kind of needed to send us an email or ask us for permission to do this. They started building these random apps. And so one of them, an example of an app was someone built hats for your cat. So you can go and buy this ERC20 token, add it to your cat, and now all of a sudden your cat had a hat. Another one created a game called CryptoKitty Races. And people could take their cats and they'd race against each other. And they'd have different probabilities of winning based on their genome, and then the winner would take all the cats. Now, this is powerful for a lot of reasons. One, it's powerful because those people building these apps, they know that we can't shut them off, and so they feel comfortable building on top of us. It's also powerful because a user now has autonomy to choose kind of where they want to take the assets that they own. And most importantly, for us as kind of the business owner who created the initial asset, it started to build really strong network effects around CryptoKitties, because now the larger the CryptoKitties community is, the more app developers want to build for that community, Therefore, the cats have more utility, meaning that they can get more expensive, but also that they can serve a wider audience. And that wider audience means more app developers are going to come and build for the cat. And so it builds really, really strong network effects in a way that, in a way where the people who are kind of creating that benefit are able to capture that value fully, and know that we can't take that away from them. And so we see that as really, really powerful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So let me ask you, do you see a future in which decentralization is the end-all be-all solution, or does the future sort of hold a more symbiotic relationship between centralization and decentralization? Because I asked that question because even within the current ecosystem of dapps, the argument is that there are some components that are still centralized.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that like decentralization is a tool. And so when even a lot of our apps have a lot of centralized elements. And so really kind of like as an app developer, when you're building a decentralized app, it's really think through like the kind of format we go through is like, okay, well, we think through what are the pieces of what we're building that are valuable and like that are important, and which ones kind of add more value to our consumers if they are decentralized, or to our business strategy if they're decentralized, and which ones don't. Now, in reality, right now, because it's early days, those things are kind of more dependent on us, but in the future, it's going to be more dependent of a competitive environment and what users expect. And so over time, there's certain things that we can get away with today that we won't be able to tomorrow, because there will be another app that will have those parts be decentralized, and those parts may be more valuable, and therefore users will go in that direction. But yeah, no, of course, there's always going to be that trade-off, because with decentralization, you gain a bunch of things. You gain in terms, but the main thing that you gain is trust. You're saying, hey, the things that I'm making decentralized, you can trust that they'll never change. You can trust that you can build on them. The things that you own, you'll own forever. And so we've, but what you lose in is an efficiency. And so it's making sure that the consumer, like what you're gaining is more valuable than what you're losing for that specific use case.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to ask a question that I'm sure is at the top of everyone's heads is why cats?
Oh, that's easy. I didn't come up with it. Our former chief creative officer, Mik, decided that it was cats. And the answer to that question, he's always said is it's the wrong question. When you're building a consumer product for the internet, you should ask yourself first, why not cats? Cats rule the internet. They're all the memes. They're all of YouTube, and so they were obviously going to be all of crypto. And so really kind of his mental model is, if you're building something for consumers, you should ask yourself first, why not cats, and then go from there.
A bit of a slight to the dog lovers out there, but okay. So how did your experience with CryptoKitties eventually lead you guys down the path of setting up Dapper Labs?
Well, with Dapper Labs, it proved to, like, it kind of goes back to our premise. It proved to us a couple of things. First and foremost, that entertainment and entertainment products would create a new wave of blockchain adoption. And more importantly, it was one where we didn't have to go out and tell people, hey, this is important. It was one where they'd want to discover it, they'd want to play with it and go deep, and they would value that it's decentralized. And so and this is something kind of like that we had as a thesis, because we've seen in the past that gaming in general kind of accelerates adoption of new technologies. And so this kind of proved that thesis right again. It also showed us that there was a lot of money to be made in building decentralized apps. So there's like beyond kind of like the us wanting to kind of create blockchain adoption, what it showed us is that we can build a really good business building decentralized entertainment applications. CryptoKitties generated about $40 million in revenue over the course of that first year. That's a real business. That's really, really exciting. And that was on a product that we spent 6 months building as an experiment. But really kind of what Dapper Labs became was less about us being proven right on our premise, but more about the issues that came out from and our learnings from CryptoKitties. We found that Ethereum couldn't scale. It couldn't scale to our needs. And so that's why we decided to build the Flow blockchain. We found that payments was a massive barrier to crypto adoption. We had a 2% conversion rate from people clicking on, I want to buy this cat, to actually being able to buy the cat. And so really the CryptoKitties experiment in a very big way helped us define what Dapper Labs strategy was going to be and its go-to-market in terms of us kind of changing our trajectory from just, hey, we're going to build great apps to, hey, we need to let's go out and build the tooling and the platform so that other people can create amazing consumer applications.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So in your experience building CryptoKitties, you realized that there were many limitations and inhibitions related to building on the Ethereum blockchain. You noticed everything that was wrong with it and what could be. So that prompted you guys to start Dapper Labs and also build the Flow protocol, right?
Yeah.
And so I guess that you guys were following a very similar playbook in that you wanted to build a very consumer-friendly application, like almost deceptively consumer-friendly application to really get blockchain into the hands of users and really start educating them about what it means to live in a decentralized future. So you're really looking for this consumer app. So tell me how you guys went from kitties to basketball.
That's a good question. There's a couple of things that we realized. The first one is building your own IP is a lot of fun. It gives you a lot of freedom, but it's very, very risky in terms of kind of building a net new IP that's going to kind of is going to speak to consumers. And so there kind of, as we were looking at it, like, what can we do next? One of the things given how uncertain the whole industry was, we actually wanted to kind of see places where we could de-risk. And we felt convinced that if we could team up with a great IP that already had an audience and just deliver to them something new that is valuable, then we're at least de-risking a big part of kind of all the things that we're trying to do. We were lucky that based on CryptoKitties' success, a lot of these great IP holders were reaching out to us, wanting to see if we could collaborate to bring something to market. And so we were in a position where that opportunity was available to us. What was really important for us, and I think what created the conviction to go after the NBA was twofold. One was that what we were looking for in terms of delivering something new to consumers was to be able to deliver to them something that was going to be 10 times better than is possible today. And we felt that with sports video collectibles, we could offer something to a consumer that is both 10 times better than non-centralized than centralized sports collectibles, because those don't really make sense because you don't actually own them. But more importantly, than physical collectibles, we firmly believe that. We believe that the reason why people watch sports is to see amazing athletes achieve greatness, and that those moments of greatness are things that are deeply emotional to fans. They're things that make them fall in love with the player. They make them fall in love with the team. They share them with their community and their friends. So they're these incredibly deeply emotional moments. And so we felt that by being able to allow people to own those things as a collectible, that would be considerably more powerful than a portrait of a player on a piece of cardboard. And so it was really kind of, that's what made us want to go towards sports and really with this idea of sports video collectibles, is because we felt that product would be a game changer for fans and for collectors. And then with the NBA, what was great is that they already had a cross-disciplinary team of people who were working on blockchain. So we were already talking to an audience that a partner that really understood, to a certain extent, what we were doing, and also were willing to work with us and give us a bunch of flexibility to experiment, so that we had enough liberty to kind of get to the right product.
And so you guys ended up launching NBA Top Shot in partnership with one of the most iconic brands in the world, the NBA. I think at its peak, NBA Top Shot would generate something like $700 million in transactions. And all of this was in an attempt to help educate users. So now I've been on the NBA Top Shot platform. You guys have indeed made it ridiculously easy to purchase NBA Top Shot moment. Almost to the degree where people really don't need to know anything about wallets or decentralization or blockchain, anything like that. My question to you is that if you've made it so easy, do you think users are actually learning anything about blockchain, or are they really truly realizing the value of, quote unquote, what it means to truly own a digital asset?
Yeah. Well, I think there's two questions in there. And the first one is it important for someone to interact with the blockchain and understand how it works? And I don't think that needs to be the case, right? I like that's like asking someone back in the first internet days, and they're like talking to the folks who created AOL, and like, well, you made it so easy to kind of click and find a website. Will your users actually understand that they're part of the the kind of the web? Or similarly, the fact that Netflix uses Amazon Web Services, do we need to know that? Does a consumer need to know that the Netflix is held in the cloud for them to value the cloud? I don't think that's the case. I think in general, consumers should be kind of getting the benefits of a technology without having to kind of deal with the challenges that used to exist. And so really kind of Top Shot today is you get to truly own this moment. You know it's a one of X and therefore it's valuable. You can sell it and transact in it very, very quickly, very, very easily. And so I think what we've tried to do is remove the friction of blockchain and highlight the benefits in a way where we're not talking about blockchain. We're really just saying, hey, this digital collectible, this one you actually own, and it's valuable. And I think we're doing a decent job at that, which we think is the important part.
So a few questions from the audience, since we're on the topic of NBA Top Shot. The first one comes from Kevin Moon over on LinkedIn. Mik, what are the early learnings from the beta launch of NBA Top Shot, and how do you feel the direction Top Shot will head towards as it readies to launch past beta?
There's so many learnings, but I think that the things that we learned a lot about, that we're learning a lot about, is how to manage a very large and very diverse community, and that all of NBA what NBA Top Shot is, and all what any I believe kind of consumer decentralized application will be is community and the quality of that community. And so really kind of what we're learning is that we every day that goes by, we control NBA Top Shot less. The other one has been really around how to fight knowing and learning around, if you have something that's valuable and you're making drops, people are going to create bots to try to get them. And so a lot of what we've been trying to do right now is with our drops, trying to figure out how to make sure that the right people or a diverse group of people are able to get access to them.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the future of NBA Top Shot, I think that we have this core belief that, which I touched upon, which is that video collectibles are net better than this type of sports memorabilia. And so we have really our work cut out for us to get NBA Top Shot from 1 million registered, 1.1 million registered accounts to 200 million registered accounts, which we believe is kind of the right size for the NBA Top Shot community. And so a lot of the work is going to continue to be around how do we make these things more accessible? How do we make it easier for people to understand what they are and more fun for them to own them?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And on a related note, this comes from the Seed over on YouTube. We'd love to hear if there are any updates on NBA Top Shot Hardcourt. Seems like a lot of Top Shot fans out there.
I don't know what I can and cannot say about Hardcourt. It's we are in the process of testing it. It's getting more fun by the day. I play it on a daily basis, but beyond that, it'll be really interesting to we believe that adding additional functionality to collectible is the future, and so it will be really interesting to test that out with a AAA mobile game.
Got it. So you talked about how, when the increasing rise of drops, you're also starting to see the evolution of bad actors in the system. Some people trying to use bots to really get access to these drops just because it is so competitive. I think with the rise of any new technology where there's risks, where there's a reward, there's always going to be risks. So where are the current loopholes that you see in NFTs? Where do you think are the biggest vulnerabilities that could potentially be exploited?
So I think, and one of the things we're starting to see is that it's really easy to create an NFT, and therefore people could start utilizing other people's IPs. At the end of the day, the reality is that regardless of whether you're online or offline, the laws of the kind of the offline world still rule. And so people who do that will get sued, et cetera. And there's a whole process there. For me, I'm not as concerned about these things because over time, there will be ways to know whether there will be more and more tools that make it easy and obvious to know kind of what is like real and what is counterfeit to protect the consumer. For me, really kind of what I think is really important right now for the industry is to go to rather than have to be on and really think through what are the boundaries of what is possible with NFTs and how do we push those use cases and how do we make these digital collectibles more and more useful and bring more and more value to consumers. And so that's for rather than focus on kind of the vulnerabilities, which I think these are all kinks that as long as there's kind of enough rewards that exist out there for them to be solved, will be solved. It's more important for us to, as an industry, to think through how do we continue to deliver more in value with this new tool that exists to consumers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, your first point touched upon exactly the I guess the gap that I noticed while diving into NFTs is that yes, creators can start infringing upon other creators, because currently it's still very, very hard to really authenticate and verify who exactly is the original creator of the artwork, unless of course you're someone as famous as like a Beeple or something like that, right? And on the other note, it is still very, very early stages of the ecosystem, and even the UI is still super, super hard. So one of the beauties of NFT is being able to check the provenance of a particular digital asset. But even doing that, is still very, very hard. Looking at the provenance of a digital asset, you have to go to all these different sites like an Etherscan. You have to look into the wallet address to see who that wallet address is tied to. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I was just talking to my colleagues, and it just seems like it's okay. It's still very, very nascent. We're still in the very early innings of this entire ecosystem. We're probably going to have to live with the fact that there will be an acceptable tolerance of faults and fraud within the system, and that's okay, because blockchain, this entire industry is self-correcting. We saw that with the industry in 2017 with the rise of all these ICOs, where most of them went bust. But on that note, we do have a related question from Joshua Ramos over at LinkedIn. The NFT industry seems to be in an ICO craze, since the success of Bored Ape Yacht Club and the daily emergence of generative art avatar projects that sell out regardless of fundamental quality. How do you see this affecting the future of this space?
I actually really like Bored Ape Yacht Club. I think it's interesting what they're doing in terms of NFTs and accessibility, and kind of like looking at that as like a kind of creating a club and social value. Unlocked by owning NFTs. So I like what they're doing, but I do agree with the point whereby right now we are in a craze where people have heard a lot about NFTs, and so anytime an NFT project comes out, everybody kind of goes crazy and buys all of them. I think that it's good and bad, right? In the short term, the craze has been really good because it's attracted a whole new wave of creators to our industry. My girlfriend works a lot in the arts, and her and her friends have known that I work in blockchain for the last 3 years. But it's only recently, 6 months ago, that those people have actually cared and have started to talk about something that has to do with blockchain, and have started to think kind of like, not like, oh, I just want to buy this thing, but really think about, well, what does this technology unlock for my use cases? And so on one hand, right now we're seeing this craze, and a lot of things are going to be, may or may not be overvalued, and in long run may not be as valuable as they can be. And and that tends to happen, right? When something gets popular, it's easy to do the least creative thing and bring that to market. But kind of the longer run of this bubble or hype cycle is that we've now attracted a whole new wave of creatives to this industry. And I suspect that those creatives are going to create really interesting projects that will likely kind of come out 6 months to a year from now. And so I think, in a sense, bubbles are great because they attract new people and new lenses on what is possible for any industry.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So NBA Top Shot, its launch effectively catapulted NFTs, this term, into the mainstream consciousness. I think that's what really helped officially kick off the NFT era. That being said, though, we see that Ethereum is still probably the most widely used blockchain out there, even for NFTs. Many of your more prominent NFT marketplaces all still leveraging Ethereum. So for Flow, what is the benefit for developers to park their resources and their time there?
That's a great question. Where to start? Well, one, Flow is 6 months old. So it's only been able to, people have only been able to develop on Flow for the last 6 months. The growth of the community has been really fantastic. We've got over 3,000 developer accounts. That's growing on at a rate of 10% week over week. But to answer the question, what's the benefit? One is is scale. And so what NBA Top Shot has proven is that Flow can reach hundreds of thousands of users on a daily basis, and be able to process millions of transactions in a way that Ethereum can't, and definitely not at the price that Ethereum can. And so it's correct that today you're still having more projects being launched, but I think that's going to change. And so the mental model you have to have is, what Ethereum has today is a really vibrant community of Ethereum folks that have a lot of money. And so if you're trying to build for quite a more niche community that at a high price point, Ethereum is the right place to be. If you've got ambitions to build on a technology that will allow you to reach hundreds of millions of consumers at a much lower price point, then Flow is the right place to be, because Flow end to end has been designed to be able to be the best place for consumer apps that want to reach consumer scale to be built.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so on that note, there's a few people who are watching, namely Joshua, Alexei, Vinny. They're all interested to know your thoughts on the future of the NFT space. What are you most excited about on the horizon at Dapper? And how would Dapper react to the metaverse as well, which is also another buzzword that we hear that is increasingly penetrating our daily vernacular?
So much to be excited about. Let's start with the metaverse. We fundamentally believe in the metaverse. One of the things that we're really excited about, should be launching Q3 or Q4, is an app called is a company called Genies that are essentially digital avatars for the metaverse and digital clothing for the metaverse. So we've been really excited about the work that they're doing, and so that's going to be Flow's first step towards metaverse, which is really exciting. In terms of what we're up to at Dapper Labs right now, I think that over the next 3 to 4 months, we'll start to see more and more exciting ops, and some of them with historical content that I'm personally quite excited about. So that's going to be really interesting to see. And then a lot of the projects partnerships that we had previously announced are going to start to come to life. UFC, Dr. Seuss, and I couldn't be more excited to see. And we've tried to kind of partner with different people for these and take different takes, take a new lens on what is possible. So I'm really excited to see how users are going to react to those projects.
Mm-hmm. So of course, as mentioned, we're in the early innings of this entire industry, this whole NFT craze, and we're seeing a limitless set of applications. People are minting anything and everything as an NFT, from a tweet to a moment to a music video. It seems like limitless are also increasingly intersecting with the fungible world, right? Tokenizing assets, using them as collateral. It seems like the applications are limitless, which can be quite intimidating for founders or developers who are not really plugged into the space. So how do you chat with founders and talk to founders who are not really involved in blockchain NFT yet? What exactly can they get started, or how can they get started?
I tell them the best way to kind of get started is rather than read a lot on blockchain, which can be kind of really intimidating, rather than watch a bunch of YouTube videos, I try to talk to them to try it themselves. So go out and buy your first cryptocurrency, then go to Dapper Radar and look at different apps and see which ones kind of bring your attention, and try to interact with those apps. I think by playing around, you'll both kind of learn what is cool about this, and what are the massive opportunities to make things better. And so I think that's the right place to start. I think that what I try to kind of make sure people understand is that NFTs or FTs, those are not industries, they're tools. And so to think through how these tools and the properties that these tools have can enable you to create something that your target audience, your consumers are going to value.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So just zooming in a little bit more on yourself and the journey that you've taken so far as a founder, it's quite interesting because I feel like you've always been at the right place at the right time. You started a mobile games focused company at the rise of the mobile era. Now you're doing a blockchain focused company also in the rise of blockchain and crypto. Was that premeditated? Was that intentional in any way?
So on the mobile one, we kind of missed it, to be perfectly frank. We were a bit too late, and I think that stunted our ability to grow. But it did teach me something. It's that we were trying to grow as an industry was contracting and consolidating, and so it taught me not to do that. Startups are really hard, so you want to kind of go like you want to ride the waves rather than swim against the current. Axiom Zen and the way we built it was really about building products, but always on emerging technologies, with the idea that by being early and like the combination of being early and being right will allow you to shape the way that emerging technology will have impact on the world. And so that was really, really important to us. And so we've been in the technology we iterate on. But that being said, being at the right place at the right time, and it seems like that right now, but I mean, 2018, 2019 were hard years. And so part of it was also kind of going through it and being able to kind of keep our heads down and work hard and survive the hard years so that we could kind of take benefit of when kind of the waves started to rise again.
Any advice to founders in determining whether or not they're too early or too late?
I think too late is easier because too late you can kind of look around at trends and what's happening. Are the players around you growing or contracting, and why or why not? Is the industry growing or contracting? So you can just look at the dynamics and kind of tell like whether you're too late or not. I think too early is hard, and really what we've seen is just focus on your consumer. I think it's really hard to just it's kind of like predict markets. I think that like I mean, if we were good at predicting markets, we would be we'd be investors, not and traders, not company builders. But I think it's really just be focused on the consumer. Be focused on your consumer. Be reactive to kind of what they're telling you in terms of the products that you're sending over to them, and be able to be honest with yourself in terms of, are my premises right or wrong, and how should I shift based on what consumers are telling me.
Got it. So perhaps, a question to start wrapping up. This will be somewhat of a softball from left field. We chatted with one of your longtime friends, Joseph, over at Mint, and he talked about his experience buying a 1982 Volkswagen Golf car with you, which actually later broke down a week later. So can you please tell us about that experience? And the question is, do you do as much due diligence with VCs as you do with buying a used car?
No, we found a car. Yeah, great car. It's a convertible, and it's beautiful, and we love old cars. We were also, these last couple of weeks have been insanely busy, so we didn't really have the time to do due diligence. And so we bought the car with the idea that if it breaks, it breaks. That's fine. It's cheap. And so we had, it lasted 2 weeks, and we had a lot of fun for those 2 weeks, and hopefully it'll be easy to fix. But that being said, no, I'm not I wouldn't call myself a car investor, and I should not be one, clearly, after this experience.
Well, I hope you didn't get stranded in the middle of nowhere when the car broke down.
No, safely parked at a friend's house.
Got it. So I think we're more or less up on time. Mik, this has been super fun. I think we covered a lot of ground here as it relates to your own journey, as it relates to what exactly an NFT is, what you guys, and also the origin stories behind some of these very iconic platforms and projects like CryptoKitties and NBA Top Shot. I'm sure that was very insightful for a lot of the fans out there. And it's really exciting to hear about what Dapper Labs has in store. So for the audience that's viewing, what's the best way to get in touch with you or Dapper Labs should they be interested?
You can always email me at Mik, M-I-K, at dapperlabs.com.
Perfect. All right. This is really fun. One of these days, I hope to facilitate chat with you in person. But for now, as a token of our souvenir, I guess we'll take a quick screenshot. So give me your best smile, Mik. All right. Awesome. Perfect. Mik, thank you so much for offering your time. This was fun. We'll have to do it again sometime.
Absolutely. Thank you, June.
All right. Have a good night or morning or afternoon. Take care.